This is a Rezvani RR1, and no, it is not a Restomod reimagining of a classic Porsche 911 made of kryptonite and unicorn tears. Instead, it's a more contemporary 911 that wears a more outrageous skin, and yet keeps all the good bits intact. It's also a bit like Build-A-Bear for modern 911s, which I guess I better explain. Now these days, this is what I would call a retro mod, but back in the day, we'd just call it a modified car. Now it takes inspiration, obviously, from Porsche's legendary 935 racers, but then it adds in a lot more attitude, some more power, a bit more handling, and a lot more noise. And also a shopping list of options that means you can make this car into your specific take on what a modern 911 should be. There are two variants, both with the same styling. The first, the RR1, is based on a 911 Carrera of pretty much any coupe version with a 3-litre turbo motor and rear-wheel drive, and that makes 591 brake horsepower punched up from the standard 385 or whatever the base car was packing. The second, the RR1 750, is based on the 3.8-litre flat-six of the Turbo S, and that goes from 640-ish to 740, 750 in US horsepower rather than UK BHP, hence the name. And that one is obviously all-wheel drive like the donor car. Both versions use new, bigger turbos, different maps, exhaust and inlet mods to provide the extra shove, well-known modest tuning to give reliable results. Both versions get this carbon widebody inspired by that 935, which is, it has to be said, not entirely a new idea. Porsche has done it itself with the 935 heritage, and I drove that track-only monster back in 2019. The interesting thing there was that car could only be driven on a circuit and was based on a GT3 RS. Rezvani's car is a much more road-going take. And then when you start looking at it, you do notice quite a lot of nice subtle detail. There's obviously a new front bumper, which is all nice and clean, and then these circular inlets here, which don't do much, but they reference the original headlights on the racing car. Then there's these new LED lights, which look quite cool, but they're kind of on everything these days. But when you're down low, you can really see the extra girth in the track. And you can have any wheels that you want, including these classic turbo fans with 20-inch rims on the front and really quite trick 21s on the rear. And then you get to the back, and the big news is obviously these massive rear arches and this huge stylized fixed rear wing. Now back in the day, 935s came with a variety of different configurations for their wings, but this is based on the original 1976 version, which is slimmer. And this is just a bit more artistic than contemporary GT3 RSs. It's a bit smoother, a bit more handsome, and I think it looks really rather good. And yes, it still looks like a 911 Carrera has crashed into the back of a wider car. It's almost like it's pooping it out the back. And then as we come down the car, there's lots of little bits of aero tweakage, but it all looks very elegant and not overdone. Little bit of Venturi stuff here, and then these gun barrel exhausts, which again are a nod to the original 935s. And with a decent system on it, this should sound pretty good. But oh! Now here's where things get a little bit interesting, because you can leave your interior pretty much stock, or you can go a little bit crazy. So you can have seat inserts of any colour or material that you want. You can have carbon fibre racing seats, though they do cost $14,500. You can have these classic Hoyer stopwatches on the dash. And I have to say, I really do like those. You can have a custom shift knob in wood or any other material, a different steering wheel that comes with shift lights in it. And if you're actually going for the full extreme race version, you can have a steel roll cage, lightweight polycarbonate windows and racing harnesses. You can see where I'm going here. This is basically pick and mix Porsche. Even the key gets its own livery. Which means you end up with a kind of one-stop shop for modifying a modern Porsche 911, but without messing too much with the engineering that makes them so good in the first place. This isn't a ground-up reimagining, because a more modern 911 basically didn't need it. It's more like having a suit tailored so it fits properly. And that goes for the rest of the hardware. In the Carrera-based versions, you can have a manual or a PDK, but the 750 is based on the Turbo S, which is PDK only. But he pays you money and he takes your choice. The 750 is faster, the 600 with a manual will likely be more involving. But the basics of those cars haven't been fundamentally changed. Yes, you can have Öhlins suspension if you want more adjustability. You can have bigger Brembo brakes, centre-lock wheels. You can have larger intercoolers, but the fundamental bits of those cars still retain the usability of a modern 911. It's basically the theory of if it ain't broke.
But who are Rezvani? Well, it's a Californian company that's probably more famous for outrageous, apocalypse-proof SUVs like the Tank, based on a Jeep Wrangler, and the Vengeance, which is a Cadillac Escalade in armoured clothes. The RR1 is an offshoot of the main business called Rezvani Retro, which suggests that the 911 is just the first part of the plan.
So how did we get here? Well, I decided to ask the boss. So Ferris, the one thing that really intrigued me was this picture. Can you explain it for me, please?
Yeah, so this was a picture of my childhood. I wasn't supposed to be in this picture apparently, but this was my father. He was an F-4 Phantom fighter pilot. This is Lackland Air Force Base in Texas. So I grew up on the military base, and I was always awed and wowed by the military equipment, the power, the sounds, the designs, all very powerful, which led to really a lot of the designs that we make today in our cars.
So did you just grow up to become a car designer?
So I started my career in the software industry, and where I learned, client management, execution, all those types of things. And then I realized that I really wanted to, follow my passion for automobiles. So I decided to open, Rezvani Motors, and I didn't want the Rezvani Motors to just become another, leather restoration company. I wanted it to be a forefront of design.
Yeah.
And really marry the design with emotion.
You've been going for more than a decade now. This timeline is brilliant, by the way.
Yeah.
We ought to have a quick look at it.
Yeah, so the first car was the Beast. It was, we used the Ariel Atom, which gave us a lot of design freedom.
British car.
British car, yes, absolutely. Then we launched the Beast Alpha, which had these very unique Sidewinder doors.
So what did they do? They came out and forwards?
They came out and went forward, kind of like a transformer almost.
Yeah, very
so
much
that was very popular. And then everyone wanted us to kind of do a brutal military-inspired SUV, and military vehicles are never designed; they're very practical.
Yeah.
So we wanted to design something that had design to it, but was still brutal and off-roadish. So we started with Tank, which was a huge hit in the U.S. People loved it.
It's so cyberpunky, though, isn't it?
It's
It's a sci-fi movie vehicle almost, but in real life. And what's that based on? That's a Jeep, isn't it?
So this was the original Tank was based on the JK Wrangler. Yeah. The Tank X, which was in 2020, that was based on the new JL Wrangler, which is the current generation, much more refined and so forth.
And you can even have that as a hybrid, can't you?
You can, yeah. There's literally, you can have the Dodge Demon engine, the Hellcat, the SRT 690. So there's a lot of different engine options in there.
Yeah, and then, see, that's my kind of thing, the Hercules 6x6.
Yeah, so, pickup trucks are some very passionate, but like, how can we make it different? Obviously 6x6. So we did the 6x6 Hercules. The Vengeance, has all it's hard on the outside, soft on the inside. It's armored and just looks like a movie car, extreme.
But then, this is a new kind of beast, isn't it?
Yeah, so the 2024 Beast is based on the C8 Corvette, which is the first mid-engine based Corvette. So this was all carbon fiber, 1,000 horsepower, mid-engine, the ultimate, more refined beast.
But the interesting thing here is you're leaving like the OEM heavy lifting, and then you're doing this artistic interpretation of what it is. Is that something that you feel is a better way of delivering your vision?
Absolutely. I think, the modern cars have the best refinement, engineering, performance benchmarks. They're really perfected to this day. And, there's no point in re-engineering or reinventing the wheel, if you will. We want to maintain the best of what has already been done and really take it to another emotional level, which is the design. I mean, the reason why we have posters of cars on our walls is not the mechanical aspect. It's really the emotion of the design that drives us, right? So that's why I wanted the company to be founded and with the purpose of creating those emotions and experiences.
Which brings me very neatly to your new project. Now, it's called Rezvani Retro. So is this a subdivision of Rezvani, or is it a different company?
Yes, so Rezvani Retro is our new division. We'll have a variety of different retro cars based on past legends and icons of the past, with all the built on modern performance, platforms.
Well, let's look at the first version of one of those.
Yeah,
come over here with me. Okay, Ferris, so this is the first project for the retro department, but how did we end up here?
So we showed an existing client of ours, sketches that I had made of a retro Porsche. We wanted to take the best of Porsche's past and the present design language and merge the two.
Okay.
The best of everything that we recognize. And so we ended up showing him a version with the sort of Taycan headlights, which is kind of where let me show you actually that picture. So it's, this was kind of the original.
Goodness, yeah.
And then we switched over to, showing the upright headlights. And the moment the client saw these upright headlights, his eyes lit up. I mean, I saw it on his face, and he's like, that's the picture I had on my poster on my wall.
Wow.
And that's what I recognize as 911. And so we realized that the round headlights they connect you to the car. They're so iconic of a 911. So we really it had to be the round headlights for the.
But it's not that simple, is it? It's not, you can't just plonk things on and expect them to work.
Absolutely. So the 964s had a very short hood.
Yeah.
And so the headlights worked really well. The newer one, the newer 992s, which is what this is based on, has a longer hood. So getting the proportions to look right was definitely a big challenge, and we did it. I'm very happy with the outcome of it.
And what else on the front is the detail change that's been edited into the car?
Yeah, so there's a little homage to the 933, which is how the hood lines connect. Instead of having a straight hood line, it actually has this sort of charming thing. It actually works really well.
Yeah.
The original 935, this is inspired by, had these round, headlights down here. So we created these as an homage to the original 935. And, the bumper had to be true to Porsche language, which is simple and functional.
And it's edited, it feels edited. It doesn't feel like there's loads and loads of stuff chucked at the car.
Yeah, exactly. We wanted to create a tasteful, it had to be, true to a Porsche, as if Porsche made one today, what would they do in terms of marrying the past design language of a Porsche and the modern Porsche together.
And then the actual roofline and DLO is pretty similar to a normal car. Obviously it's wide body because we find it, and it's all carbon fiber, right? The additional panels are all carbon fiber.
Yeah, all the panels are carbon fiber, so we reduce weight there. It is based on the 992, of course, giving the modern technology, performance benchmarks, refinement, serviceability, all that is there. This is the evolution of the best of a 911 in a lot of ways. The turbofan wheels are kind of a throwback to the originals.
That's an easy win, but they look great.
Yeah. And of course being red, like true to the original 935s that they had. The martini stripes being kind of very iconic to the 935 back when they first,
Was a customer pushing for that, or was that a stylistic decision from Rezvani?
That was a stylistic decision from us to
give it that impact.
Yeah.
But you could have this car without a livery, couldn't you? You could just have it painted a solid colour and no turbo fans, and it'd be
absolutely.
It'd almost be a different looking car, wouldn't it? I think
it would be. Yeah, gloss black, for example, with different livery. But yeah, it's all customizable to how the client wants it.
But obviously, the big 935 part is here, and this is where it looks the most kind of impactful from the back.
Yeah, the shark fin style of this rear end, this was actually the 935 2.0 baby is what they called it.
Yeah.
So it competed in the 2-liter class back in the day. But its iconic design of this silhouette and this shark fin was just very, very unique to me. And so we thought that is the best representation of that. Obviously 935, there are so many different styles and versions of them at the time. And the rear of this car is about 4 inches wider than a regular Carrera and 3 inches wider in the front than a regular Carrera. So it has a very good stance. And of course, the tire and wheel package are from essentially the same as the GT3 RS, so very, very, a lot of contact rubber. The center mounted exhaust, again, the design is very reminiscent of the 935s, almost fighter jet looking,
very much
fighter
so.
jet.
It's an afterburner.
Exactly, looks like an afterburner.
It's funny though, why not make this $1 million car?
Well, let me tell you why it's not $1 million car, or why not $1 million car. It's because a lot of the Restomods take an old car, and there's a lot of work that has to be done to modernize or try to modernize it as best it can. But because we're already starting with such a modern platform, and it's so refined and it has such high performance benchmarks, it doesn't need to be that price point. And we focus on the design and the emotion of it, and of course, the visceral nature of it, manual transmission, it feels different and everything else. But mainly, to answer your question, it's because of the amount of work is not necessary. And the product is far more advanced on a performance level.
Okay, Ferris, just wanted to ask, if this is Rezvani Retro's first car, what's next?
Well, there's sketches and there's thoughts, but we may be looking at some. I can't go into detail until we finally decide which model we're going to choose, but definitely one of the icons of the past. And
okay.
you'll recognize which one.
So is it the same idea? You're going to take sort of retro ideas and icons and translate them to a more modern platform?
Exactly, correct. So it'll have the best of the design language of the manufacturer's past plus the present merged together.
See, I think we should do a Skoda Yeti Restomod, and I think we should go and talk about it.
All right.
Because I think it's the perfect car for doing a Restomod. Do you even know what a Yeti is? It's like
No.
Right, so let's get down to business. A basic widebody conversion and engine repower of an appropriate 911 into RR1 format costs $195,000, which is a lot, but nowhere near what most Restomods cost. The rest of the bill is made up of options to suit, which when you start totting up paint, wheels, interiors and mechanical fettling could easily be another 75 grand. But that means you get a bespoke, very fast, very usable 911 for around $450,000 to $480,000, which in context is pretty solid.
Now, Porsche will obviously do this sort of thing for you through its Sonderwunsch program, but you do pay a massive Porsche premium for the privilege. So is this kind of halfway house between a full Restomod and bespoke modifying the way to go, or would you just do it yourself? Let me know in the comments.